Motherfucker, I'm back.
All your favorite wrestling shows rolled into one. Welcome to the We Book It podcast. Let's start the show.
I'm back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of, this is a two-parter tonight. We're going to be doing Who's Next in NXT, and in addition, the All Elite Recap. I am your host, Coach, for this evening. So let's cut the chatter. Let's just go ahead. Let's jump right into what happened last night on NXT. We begin with Cruz Montana coming out and basically calling out Zilla Fatu, especially after last week when Fatu interrupted his main event last week and cost him the opportunity for the NXT Championship at Heatwave. Montana demanded a fight with Fatu before being told that Fatu wasn't even in the building yet. He ended up getting the AAA World Cruiser Champion Rey Fenix instead, who told Montana he was there to find out who his next challenger and that he has his back in a war with Fatu. Montana acknowledged that these two had history together, mainly saying TNA and AAA, but definitely obviously included AEW, and said that he was proud of Fenix for representing the culture. Then Montana said that he'd see Fatu in the parking lot. It was a nice touch, actually, bringing in Rey Fenix, and I like that they acknowledged the history with Montana and Fenix. I find it interesting, though, about this alliance. It could end up being nothing, but maybe we will get Rey Fenix versus Zilla at some point in the future because of this alliance. Only time will tell. So speaking of Rey Fenix, he's sits back and watches our opening match, which is a AAA World Cruiser Championship #1 contenders fatal four-way match. That was a mouthful. We got EK Prosper, Tristan Angels, Romeo Moreno, and La Parca. This was just nonstop action from start to finish. Each guy got time to really shine. Parca's high-flying arsenal was particularly a highlight, and Moreno leaping to the outside in impressive fashion was good, but then again, Parca's moonsault was even better. Angels, towards the end of the match, Angels connected with a enziguri to Moreno, then a Spanish fly from Parca on the top rope was followed by a frog splash from Prosper. Prosper ultimately won with a backflip moonsault to Moreno, earning him a shot at Rey Fenix next week on NXT. Prosper, not a bad pick. He's coming off some big wins over Keanu Carver, so it's smart to keep his momentum rolling by having him challenge for this. Do I think he wins? I'm not so sure, but I think he is going to really stand out. It's a good thing that Side note that it's good that Angels did not suffer another unnecessary loss. He didn't win, but he didn't eat the pin, so it was good that he got protected in that way. So Phoenix versus Prosper heading into next week on NXT. We go to our next match, which is a women's match. It is Thea Hail taking on Nattie, and Hail controlled the offense early on, went for a finisher early, but Nattie avoided it and nearly stole a win with a crucifix pin. They went back and forth. Hail locked into Kimura, but Nattie escaped and secured the sharpshooter and forced Hail to tap out. After the match, Nattie put Hail back in the sharpshooter while Jada Parker was forced to watch while being held back by Nikita Lyons and Carmen Petrovic. This was a simple match, and it served its purpose. Yeah, Nattie and Parker's feud kind of needed something to be one-upped, and I think this was good. And this is causing the need for a rubber match since both of them have one win apiece. Oddly enough, Hail was responsible for Nattie's loss to Parker, so this gave her some of that revenge. It's good to see Thea Hail back. Her booking ever since the Blake Monroe Women's North American Championship debacle has been non-existent. So the fact that she is starting to get back everything, I'm very happy. I'm very happy for her. But let's get ready for Parker versus Nattie 3, and hopefully no interference. Let's just get it over with. The rivalry's kind of done with this, and Jada Parker needs to go on to something else and elevate herself. All right, we go to our next match, which is the Speed Championship match between Lexis King and Lucian Price. It was a rematch from last week's show when Price knocked off King in a non-title action. And so this match, Speed Championship, only 5 minutes long. King got going early, was ducking Price from out of everything and running down the clock. Price eventually stopped him in his tracks with a big chop to the chest. King leveled him with a DDT, and after enduring a series of slams from Price, King received an assist from Connors and Dempsey on the outside to hit his finisher and retain his title with seconds to spare. Post-match, the Birthright went right after Price before Bronco Nima made the save. It's tough with speed matches that these are they're too quick, and sometimes they can be non-interesting. This one had a simple story, and that's good, but it just wasn't interesting enough for this. I think it's time to get rid of the speed titles, and I know Big Daddy C will be very happy with me saying that I think it's time for the speed titles to be retired. It had a lot of momentum when it first started when it was on Twitter. Then it had some more momentum when it just became an NXT title. Now it's just kind of there. So we go to our next segment, which is Grayson Waller in the ring, and similar to Montana at the beginning of the show, was very unhappy that his NXT Championship match was interrupted by Fatu last week. Waller wasted no time in targeting Fatu in his promo and taking shots at his family. Although Waller laid claim to be the uncrowned number one contender, Tony D'Angelo emerged to tell him he didn't earn his opportunity before Montana showed back up, straight from the parking lot, I should say, to say the same thing and tell Waller that they had unfinished business. Robert Stone then made it clear that Fatu is not yet officially signed to a contract and that D'Angelo will defend the NXT Championship against Waller and Montana in a triple threat match at Heatwave. I like this, that it was an easy solution to the NXT Championship match. Two guys were screwed out of their opportunity by outside forces, so it's only right that they both get their chance back and it becomes a triple threat. You could tell they were a little short on time, but one that they were getting their stuff done. They were going quick, and it was a good thing that they got what they needed to out of the way. But you could tell that they were speeding up, trying to get everything done before they were cut off. We go to our next match, which is a women's tag team match with Kendall Gray and Ren Sinclair taking on Callie Armstrong and Kelani Jordan. Gray and Sinclair have been a great tag team together. I love the friendship they have formed here. But I love that Gray and Armstrong, they have good in-ring chemistry with each other, and you kind of forget how well they worked together when they were doing the Evolve Women's Championship last year that Kendall Gray ended up winning. Towards the end, Sinclair and Jordan got into the match, traded blows. There was some questionable officiating that Booker T was calling out, that he actually called the referee the Herb Dean of NXT, and that was a funny moment. So real ones will know what that means. And then a power slam from Armstrong to Sinclair following her Kali connection, running shoulder, secured the victory for Armstrong and Jordan. I thought all four ladies did a really good job. It just goes to show again that the women in NXT are just levels above the men sometimes. And I think these four women showed exactly that. You have your main event talent in NXT on the men's side, but then there's a big drop off. With the women, it is every single one of them is main event worthy. And it is very good to see in that development, especially on the main roster where that is very lacking. So Shawn Michaels is doing a great job with the women in NXT, getting them ready for the main roster. One thing that was confirmed after the match was that Kendall Gray will defend her NXT Women's Championship against Kelani Jordan at Heatwave. So this was kind of a solid preview for it. And it made sense for Sinclair to get pinned, and it didn't hurt her in the process. So I really thought that was it was a really solid match. All right, we get to our next match, which is a NXT North American Championship #1 contenders match. This one's between Shiloh Hill and Jackson Drake. Hill was dominant in the first few minutes, but then, of course, Vanity Project got involved to give Drake the advantage. A lot of back and forth towards the second half. Lockwood was distracting the referee on the apron, which allowed Vanity Project to take advantage, only for the ref to realize what was going on and ejected them all to the back. And just as Hill was getting to the top rope to put Drake away, Naruku emerged from underneath the ring, sprayed red mist in Hill's face. Drake connected with a 450 splash and pinned Hill for the 3 count. Shiloh Hill looked great in this match. Probably one of his better matches in a long time. Not saying that his last couple matches were bad. They were fine. But this one gave him a chance to really showcase his skills. And Drake going to take on Miles Bourne. This is a perfect classic heel versus classic babyface matchup. I think it's going to be a good one at Heatwave. And, you know, it makes it believable that the title could change hands. So I think this is really, really good. And also Hill calling out Oroku the last 2 weeks. The feud seemed inevitable. So yeah, that one was pretty self-explanatory. All right, we go to our main segment of the evening, and it is Robert Stone introducing Zilla Fatu and the crowd going crazy, of course. And with only a few minutes left in the show, he didn't talk for too long, but he did leave a lasting impression with his charisma. He then signed his contract to be on NXT, leading to Robert Stone making the announcement that Fatu has been added to the NXT Championship match at Heatwave. D'Angelo, Waller, and Montana then came out, but were held back by security. And so we will get a fatal 4-way at Heatwave between Fatu, D'Angelo, Waller, and Montana. So they're definitely rushing Fatu into the spotlight. So let's see what happens. But Fatu also is strong from the independent scene, from the indies. He was reestablished again as another big force, and he cut a pretty good promo on that. So having this for the last one to build the anticipation, perfect sense. Perfect sense. I'm excited for this four-way. I want to see how this goes, and do they pull the trigger and give it to Fatu this early? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. But overall, a really solid show from NXT this past Tuesday, and it was a good job by the brand to set up what's going to happen at Heatwave. And, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good show, Heatwave. We already got some really, really good matches, championship matches on there. So we'll just see what happens from there. Okay, so switching gears from NXT over into AEW, we get the recap of AEW from tonight. Right away, we start out with a trios match with Will Ospreay, Francisco Akira, Henry versus Brian Cage, Lance Archer, and Rocky Romero. So basically, it was all about the Don Callis family. They kept control from break till Cage was laid out with a German suplex and then a hot tag to Ospreay. Ospreay teamed up with Akira for a cutter on Rocky, and then Henry and Akira then dived onto Archer and Cage outside, while Ospreay hit Rocky with a hidden blade to win. Besides the blatantly obvious result, this was still a fun match. This was just a really good time for United Empire to really get some showcase on the show. So I think that was the good part of it. And it was also good that Ospreay got the win and avoided taking any rough bumps, because All In is just two weeks away. You do not want your star wrestler getting hurt before the big match against Kenny Omega. All right, we get to our next segment, and it is the return of Takeshita. Backstage, Okada spoke with Renee Paquette and explained that Kyle Fletcher should be ready to raise his hand if he wins at All In. He then spoke with Tony Schiavone in the ring. Fletcher reminded Okada that what was best for the family was keeping the gold on him. And then as Fletcher turned to calling Takeshita a coward, he arrived to lay out Fletcher and stand tall with the International Championship. Good to see Takeshita back, but I think we're going to have to go with the triple threat, Fletcher versus Okada versus Takeshita. It doesn't need any more build. I think it's already set, but it would be nice to have a big face-off between the three before they fight at Wembley Stadium. I think this has the chance to steal the show at All In. So let's make sure that they're all on the same page. And the question is, will Kyle Fletcher turn face? I think it might be too soon for that, but we'll have to wait and see. Yes, D-Money, I agree with you. Yes, I do think that is going to be the match of the night. I think it is going to be an excellent match between these guys for the International Championship. All right, we get to our Next segment, which is Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay sitting down with Renee Paquette. Renee talked about their history dating back to the New Japan Pro Wrestling history. Omega questioned Ospreay's ability to deliver when the lights are the brightest. Ospreay then talked up why All In was more important to him than any moment in his career. And you could see Ospreay getting more emotional and Omega just playing on his emotions, teasing him about how hard it would be on his family, especially his son, if Ospreay lost. This was just classic promo work by both of these guys, and this was just an excellent segment for that. This was the best for Omega to sell why fans should hate him, why he should be the heel. He has got a cocky attitude, and he's done treating Ospreay as a friend after all they've been through. It just sells the big match that this is coming in at All In. Don't be surprised if they get a little physical next week because they just have 1 week left to go. Yeah, this is going to be a good match as well. But I mean, heel Omega is great. I really do like heel Omega, but the issue is I think he might still be considered a babyface after Wembley. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I'm just going to enjoy what Kenny Omega is doing right now and his heelish ways. All right, we get to our next match, which is a TBS Championship match between Maya World, Kris Statlander, Shida, and Persephone. And this action was hard-hitting, fast-paced. Shida and Persephone enjoyed hurting Statlander and World into the commercial break. Shida took over the ring, setting up Persephone to spear Statlander, and then she laid out Maya with a running knee, and then it just left those two in the ring. They started battling it out with each other. Statlander then returned, laid out Shida, and then caught Persephone with a pin, but Maya World was there to break it up with a senton. Maya then rolled up Statlander to retain her TBS championship. You know, you think about how Maya World got here, that because two wrestlers refused to show up in a match because they knew they were going to lose, and Maya World stepped up for her opponent, she has now been rewarded with all of this momentum, and rightfully so, because she is a very underrated wrestler. This was a good win for her to keep her title reign fresh. It's going to be interesting what happens at All In. If it's not, there's not even a match been announced at All In now that I think about it, for the TBS Championship. So I really hope that they figure something out to get World on the All In card, because this Fatal 4-Way, if this was any indication of how great all four of these women work together, if they're not on the pay-per-view, this could be a big missed opportunity. But we'll see what happens there. One side note, Kris Statlander looked very annoyed by her loss, but left the ring for Maya, so I don't know what that could be. So we'll just have to see what happens. D-Money in our comments says, give Will Ospreay the Cody-like story. I hate to say it. You know, I can see it. I can definitely see that happening. But I don't know, man. It's just this is so up in the air with this match. I do think Ospreay is going to win, but man, just him and Omega going one-on-one with each other in Wembley is just going to I'm literally getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. It's going to just be so entertaining, and I can't wait for that. I'm not going to be mad at whoever wins. Whatever result happens, I think there's no wrong answer, except just make sure there's no interference. Let's not make interference happen. Let's call it down the middle. Heck, make it an Iron Man match. I don't care. Okay, getting back on track. We get to our next match, which is a Continental Challenge Cup match between Jon Moxley and Jay White. White and Mox kind of exchanged chops back and forth before Mox tackled White out of the ring going into the commercial break. Coming back from break, there was, again, the back and forth. White tried the Blade Runner. Mox countered, but could not stop the Hatch suplex. White then rolled the Death Rider's leader into the mat, into a Nagata lock. Mox grabbed for the ropes in a panic, into a second break. Mox then managed to hit a pile driver and a suicida to wear down White, allowing him to kind of get his feeling back in his left shoulder that he was feeling from the submission hold. White then fired back with a couple of sleeper suplexes. And then they both teased Blade Runners and Bulldog chokes, continuing to counter one another. White finally caught Mox with the Blade Runner, but Mox rolled outside. And once White got him back in the ring, Mox had a Death Rider. White kicked out, but Mox locked in a sleeper for a TKO. So White got knocked out. After the match, David Finlay and Clark Connors then attacked White. The conglomeration tried to make the save, but Gabe Kidd made his return to help the dogs. Adam Page and Brodito arrived to end the dogs into retreat, and the demand arrived as well before Page made clear the champions were delivering an open challenge for the World Trios Championship. There was first off, I want to talk about the match. The match, fantastic. I was surprised they got this much time, but I am glad they did because that was a very, very good match. And White still looks strong in defeat. I think I take it back to Bret Hart versus Steve Austin when Stone Cold got knocked out to lose the match, but he never gave up. White kind of looked like that in this match. So match-wise, fantastic. Just a really good match. Everything afterwards just seemed awkward. Way too much stuff happening. You have one group here, you have another group here, a third group comes in. It's just, that was just too much. I get what they were trying to do, but it just came off as awkward. I didn't like what the ending was like, but other than that, the match itself, fantastic. So it's a shame the post-match wasn't the best. All right, we get to our next match, which is Andrade taking on Jonathan Cruz. Cruz got in the ring and taunted Andrade in Spanish and in English, oddly enough, until Andrade arrived. And then Andrade took out Cruz quickly with the Dia de los Muertos and DM. Afterward, he called out MJF, who appeared from a pool to mock Andrade. And Andrade, in anger, laid out Cruz again with another DM. Basically just a squash match. But it was a good job showing a fiercer side of Andrade. So I do think that was smart. But other than that, nothing Nothing crazy about this. So it was an okay, but it did its job. I'll say that. It did its job. All right, we get to our next segment, which has Renee Paquette interviewing Mercedes Moné and Willow Nightingale from different locations. Both of these women promised that they would have victory over one another, and they started arguing with each other. Then Mercedes and Willow both agreed that they hated one another and they were not going to wait for Wembley. They then found each other backstage and brawled all the way into the ring, where security barely got involved to break everything up. What I think is lost in all of this is that these two women have a history before Moné even joined AEW. The hatred that they have is strong. Unlike Omega versus Ospreay, where there's a little bit of line of respect between the two, Willow and Mercedes have no respect, and they're just going to keep going. Willow got the better of Mercedes, who was kind of trying to figure out what she could possibly do to turn around everything. But again, another solid story going into All In. It stinks because this is a main event worthy match, but you know it's not gonna. You can't put Ospreay and Omega in the earlier card. You have to have them be the main event. But man, that is this match is going to be so good. We get to our next match, which is a Continental Challenge Cup match between Hikaru and Nigel McGuinness. McGuinness was struggling to even walk to the ring, and he quickly had his back leg exposed. While McGuinness fought him early, the CMLL heavyweight champion found his way to hobble McGuinness into the commercial break. He was then taunted and teased by the champion, and almost Hikaru kind of thought there's no way he could lose, but McGuinness caught him running into a last chancery, forcing a TKO as Hikaru could not break free. A little bit of a mixed reaction here. AEW has not booked Hikaru well. So the argument that AEW might have made a mistake again by having him lose to McGuinness is a solid argument. But from the other side, the story of McGuinness fighting through injury all the way to Wembley is too good of an idea to pass up. This is probably going to be the end of McGuinness's in-ring career, and you got to let him tell this story, even if it hurts somebody like that. I think it's interesting that McGuinness was mostly sold to get lucky at the end, catching his opponent to advance and unable to walk his way to the back. It's going to take a huge effort from McGuinness to sell that he has a chance with a bum leg to beat Moxley, no matter where it happens. So that's the interesting that is a interesting way going forward with this, and I think they did make the right choice for McGuinness. All right, we go to our final segment, which is Tony Schiavone. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more thing. Sorry, I forgot about that. So we go to our next segment, which is Tony Schiavone in the ring trying to talk to Kevin Knight. Knight took the mic and called out Darby Allin. After making sure Allin had no weapons, he invited him into the ring. Pyro then exploded in Allen's face, and then Knight hitting a steel chair coast to coast on Darby Allin. Officials needed to stretcher out Allin with the help of Borden, and this was a unique way to get this rivalry escalated, and it's a way that Knight using Allen's own tactics against him. And also what it is that this showed that Kevin Knight is willing to do anything to avoid the match against Allin. Knight is looking stronger as a heel. There was no Don Callis to interrupt him. Coincidence? No, it's not. Let Kevin Knight be his own thing as a heel. We then get to our main event, which is a trios match between Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks versus El Clan, Jack Doyle, and Mark Davis. This one was a wild back and forth contest where the Elite struggled to match the athleticism or the power of Davis and Doyle. Coming back from commercial break, Omega, Matt, and Nick Jackson managed to rally in the home stretch. Omega got Doyle alone in the ring after the Young Bucks dived onto Davis and Klon, allowing Omega to hit a one-winged angel to win. Beretta, Romero, and Archer arrived afterward to beat down the Elite. Adam Copeland then arrived to turn the tide. Christian Cage followed reluctantly and took an accidental super kick from the Young Bucks before the brawl spilled outside. This left Omega in the ring alone before Ospreay arrived. Omega tried to have Ospreay taken away by security, but Ospreay fought free and took a V-trigger into a one-winged angel through the table off the apron. The match for the main event was okay, but everyone's going to be talking about the post-match, and that's and that's what we want out of this. Everyone involved did their job. I thought Klon did a great job in the match. He's not getting enough highlight against these three men that could have been delivered some great sequences, but he was kind of pushed off to the side. And Omega went full heel at the end of this match to solidify his villain status. It was a little over the top as he mocked Ospreay, but at the same time, it was still kind of sweet to see that. Even if it's likely to be revealed that Omega was quote unquote testing Ospreay with his antics after All In, this was a blatant statement that Ospreay's the babyface, Omega's the heel. So we'll just have to see from there. So yeah, that is going to wrap things up tonight. It was a very long show tonight, trying to get everything from NXT to AEW done tonight. Thank you to all of our viewers here. Thank you to those that commented. We love seeing the comments on the show. We love interacting with you all and seeing what you want to talk about. So again, thank you for tuning in. I'm Coach, and I will see you next time on another edition of the All Elite Recap.